Hello again. Now for real. Welcome to the koha-US System Administration Special Interest Group. Oh, that bodes poorly. Just lost the whole introduction. Anyway, we're here to talk about the administration module of Koha and all the things that live in there, and also SQL and whatever else people want to talk about. We don't generally have any particular agenda. We just hang out and wait for people to ask questions or raise concerns. I did prepare a tiny bit for this meeting because we'd been talking about the bug that just made it into Koha 25159 that starts storing action logs as a diff so you can more easily find out what has changed when something changes. So I did prepare a little bit of like, hey, this is how you look at your JSON diff action logs and write reports for that. So if nobody else has things they want to talk about, we could look at that. But first, hey y'all, what's going on? Who's got Koha stuff they want to ask questions about?
I don't have questions, but I had two good ideas to change Koha. Really minor changes that I'm bringing back from, I was at the Mountain Plains Library Association conference last week in Salt Lake City. And one of the libraries, I went to two different presentations about not just eliminating late fees, but also eliminating lost item fees. And one of the speakers said that they had actually renamed lost items at their library to unreturned items because it doesn't sound as horrible to patrons. It doesn't sound as judgmental as you lost this. You know, it says this item hasn't been returned yet. One of the other librarians there said that they called them unreturned items, and the other one said they called it not returned items. So I'm thinking about making that change here to change lost to not returned, and changing our language in our long overdue notices from lost to not returned. So that was an idea, and that's something that could be easily changed in Koha. With most of that, it could be changed in the authorized values. And then the other one was to change other name to, I already have it changed to nickname, but the idea was to change other name to preferred name. And I like that also, so.
There is a whole preferred name bug that has been kind of
Is there?
stalled out. Yeah. And it's a nice bug because it includes the idea of like in notices defining when you use preferred name and when you use legal name.
Right.
I know this was kicked off by an academic library that was coming at it specifically from the idea of they have students who use one name on campus and really cannot use that name at home for personal safety reasons.
Yeah, that makes
Um,
sense.
so like it was a well thought out thing, but I think it got a little stuck. Yeah, yeah, it's sitting at failed QA.
Yeah, I
And put
see
it
it
in
here.
the chat.
28633.
I'm curious to know how many of you actually use the other name preferred name field.
I don't
We
know
use it
that.
a lot. We changed I used jQuery, 12 years ago. I added some jQuery to the system I was using then that changed other name to nickname. And that made more sense. And we also came from a situation where we were using a system prior to Koha that didn't have any variation. And so, I mean, it was a pain in the butt not to have a place to put a patron's nickname. We had one particular patron who her name was Rose of Sharon. That was her first name, which is, from the Bible. But she went by Rosie. And so she'd call up and she'd say, this is Rosie, whatever her last name was. I'm wondering if I have anything on hold, or I wonder if there's anything wrong with my account. And then and then after 5 minutes of searching, she would say, oh yeah, it's my legal name is Rose of Sharon. So it was nice to have that other names feature in Koha where we could put Bob or Jimmy or Liam or whatever nickname it is that people are using as opposed to what's on their driver's license. So I have libraries using it all the time. But the idea of changing the field name from other name or nickname to preferred name, I think is a good idea.
Oh, I really like that idea. We've been discussing it. We have about 47 accounts, but most of those are nicknames opposed to preferred name. And our issue is with the apps and basically everything other than notices use the first name when they're contacting or accessing or showing the real name on the account or the name on the account, and our notices use the preferred name. So we're trying to figure out a way. We're actually thinking about flipping the preferred name, or I don't know we're going to do this, but put that in the first name field and then use the other name field as like the legal dead name kind of. So basically flip the two so that the apps and everything else is using the same thing that the notices are. So that's been in discussion for a while here, but I was just trying to most of ours are nicknames, like Bob, Billy, Becky, Susie, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, which I feel like preferred name is a perfectly good substitute for nickname. Yeah. My brother is William, but he prefers Bill. Yeah. And I prefer to call him Billy because that's what I grew up doing. But yeah, the way that we have it set up is like in the print notices, it'll say first name, and then in parentheses, it will have the other name, and then the last name is the way that we have our system set up right now for most notices, I believe.
Yeah, our notices are running through message B. So we've got it set up that if it has a first name, it uses the first name. If there is an other name present, ignore the first name and give us the other name. Okay. Unfortunately, everything else that connects to Koha does not have that capability. So like our library app, which is in-house, is displaying their first name, not the preferred name or other name. But I like the name of renaming the field. I like the idea. Like that's a really, just change the name. But I just have to figure out what to call these fields because the first name will be the preferred name, I guess, is what we could put, and then put the legal name as the other field.
And using jQuery, you should be able to rename those however you want. And you should be able to move them around too. Moving them around is a little trickier, but you can do that with jQuery so that you get them in the order that makes sense to you and your staff.
Okay. Well, I guess when they make a decision, I will come back and check. But thank you guys. This is great.
Rebecca, you mentioned that message B does some logic to say if there's an other name, use that. And otherwise use first name. You could this doesn't matter to you because you're using message B, but for anybody else, if you wanted to accomplish something like that in Koha notices, that sounds like Template Toolkit could do it easily.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what we were doing before we switched to message B. So it was like if other exists, then use other. I have it somewhere. I have it written down, but it's been deleted to run for the message B tool. Message B setup, so.
Right.
But totally doable.
George, when you talked about eliminating lost fees earlier, did you mean entirely like I lose a $20 book, I don't owe you anything? Or did you mean like fees in addition to the cost of the book?
The presentation I went to was from, I forget the name of the library. It's in Moab, Utah, which is near the Colorado border. And they have eliminated essentially, you lose a book, it's like they just eat the cost. The person that did that presentation did a really great presentation, and the title of it was Eliminating Fees at the Library, but it was really about making your policies more patron-centered rather than library-centered. And she started off talking about how when she was just a kid and starting at the library, family came in and they, it was like her first week, and the stepmother wanted to get library cards for the 3 children. And she said, well, they already have cards and they owe money. And the director came out and said, yep, you can't get cards until you pay these bills. And then the youngest girl cried and broke, was upset, and the family left and they never came back. And then 25 years later, she said there was an incident at the library and she had to call the police. And the police officer that came helped them out and then said, "You guys are so much nicer than," and they'd moved buildings. And he said, "You guys are so much nicer than the people at that old building. When I was a kid, I remember coming in with my sister and my brother and my stepmother, and the librarian said we couldn't have cards." And she realized, and he said that mean old librarian said we couldn't have cards, and she realized she was that mean old librarian. And so she started thinking about policies in terms of changing all of their library policies to be more focused on what helps the patron. And she said, really, when it came down to it, they decided that, is it more valuable? Is it more important for us to get the materials back or to have people keep using the library? And so they decided to eliminate not just late fees, but lost item fees. They said it's just not worth it. She also told a story about, they also had an incident where the headline in the newspaper was, "Library has woman arrested."
I
Where
mean,
in Utah, they can turn people over to the police. The law says they can turn people over to the police for unpaid fees. And they turn somebody over to the police, and the police just go knock on the door and say, "Hey, the library wants their books back." And when they went and knocked on this one lady's door, she had an outstanding warrant, so they arrested her, and that was the library's fault. And she said that was bad publicity for the library.
Iowa has similar statutes where, like, if a patron has failed to return enough books and you've gone through the right hoops, they can be charged with theft, and it's effective but not very popular.
No,
I've worked in that library.
Yeah, and I've been in that situation in Idaho as well. I don't know
Yeah.
that there's a law in Kansas pertaining to that, because I've never had to do that. So, but yeah, there were lots of good presentations. Unfortunately, they don't record everything like we do. Otherwise, I tell people which ones I thought were good. So, and I also went to Bywater did a summit at Salt Lake City Public Library on the pre-conference day, and I went and did a plug for koha-US there. So it was a good conference all in all. Salt Lake is actually a lot more fun than everybody makes it sound like it is. So.
Well, folks, what else is going on? Has anyone done anything amazing? Broken their koha in a spectacular fashion?
I just figured out a way to make the OPAC unresponsive if you click buttons in the cart a certain way. So I'm opening a bug on that.
That seems like a good place for a hidden problem. Obsessive cart clicking.
Yeah, I was trying to make it more mobile friendly because it sucks on mobile, and I figured that's how people are shopping for things. So I thought it was something I did, but I just spun up a sandbox and I'm able to do it in the sandbox. So it wasn't me this time.
Hooray.
Just out of curiosity, what is this secret combination of clicking?
You add more than 3 things to the cart, then you open the cart, you click select all, and then you uncheck the top checkbox and then click clear all, and it freezes everything up, which I don't think is intended.
How in the world did you, that must have been crazy the way you found that.
Yeah, I'm thorough in my testing, we'll say that.
Yeah, that must have been incredibly thorough. Yeah.
I enjoy the bugs where you list, like, this is how you recreate it, blah, blah, blah. I know no one will ever do this, but, like, probably we should fix it.
Somebody did in order to discover it. Somebody had to do that. So, yeah.
Quick, somebody talk. All right, well, then I'm going to talk about JSON. Hooray. Let me share my screen. All right, so are you all seeing a bug? Am I sharing the right screen? Hooray. All right, so this bug 25159 we've talked about a couple times. This makes it so that when a hold is changed in Koha, if the holds log is on, previously the action log every time a hold got updated just recorded the contents of the reserves table for that hold after your change. So say you suspended a hold, it would write into the holds log all that information, including the suspension you just set. But after this bug, it's doing a little bit more than that. Here, I'm gonna do this way. 1 second. I wrote too much report. All right, so here's what we get in the action logs now after this update. I haven't been poking at this in the log viewer because I just don't play with the log viewer that much. I've been looking at it via SQL because that's kind of where I anticipate using this more. So this is what has for a long time gone into the info box in the holds log. That's just everything that's in the reserves table. But this new column diff shows you only what has changed. So in this instance, wow, I changed the pickup location. So I guess D stands for diff. The diff is the branch code, O for an old value, N for the new value. It was to pick up at this branch, and now it's to pick up at this branch. And then also the timestamp changed because I changed something. And that is just saying, show me everything from action logs in the holds module where that diff column includes the word branch code. So the branch code changed. So making it easy to write a report that says, how many times in the last month did the pickup location of a hold get changed? So this one, I did a little bit more formatting to like pull those values out. So if I just ask for the diff column, I get what we were looking at before. But the function you want to actually grab bits of data out of there is JSON extract. So JSON extract wants you to point it at a field. So go to the diff field. And then within that diff field, follow this path. And the path is $.D. So find the set of data that is marked with a D. And then within that, find the set of data that is branch code. And we're going off these curly brackets here. So if I say, give me diff branch code, I get that whole chunk of branch code data, everything from this colon on through that curly bracket. But I can get more specific and say, okay, within D and within branch code, find the O value, so the old value. So here I could say this hold was from CPL or was going to CPL, and then the new value is FPL. So I could write a report that says within the last month, give me all the holds that changed and where did they change to. Christopher asked in chat, what is the end goal with knowing how many times the pickup location has changed? This is a kind of proof of concept rather than the specific question I want asked. But yeah, kind of knowing what has changed in your holds. And then one thing to note out of here is it is giving me those values quote wrapped. So if I was trying to compare them to things, I might need them unquoted. And there's a just easy function for that if I need that as FPL rather than FPL in quotes. That's going to matter more, I think, if you're like pulling out numbers or things that you want Koha to treat as numbers rather than as strings. But anyway, yeah, that's how the hold log works now. It makes it really easy to find what has changed in any given update.
I think just getting the action logs moved into into JSON format instead of whatever the hell format that was before
Yeah.
is awesome. Just that
Yeah,
as a start is awesome, because that, you know, that string of data is really messy to get stuff out of. It's doable, but it is a colossal pain.
Yeah, I have a lot of reports that look at this and do like substring index to
Yeah, exactly.
pull numbers out. And even then you're only getting what it changed to. You've got no sense of specifically what changed or what value it was before. Anyway, this is a fun tool. I don't know. To go back to Christopher's question, I haven't figured out what I want to know about our holds. I could see wanting to know, get some sense of like how often holds are getting suspended, how often patrons are canceling holds.
Well, this is having them in JSON and having the diff there is also really useful for when borrower data is updated, or when any data in the system is updated, because right now you're just getting a dump of the data and then you have to go back and look at what it was previously and then kind of go through line by line to figure out what's changed. But having the diff there and having it in a format that can be easily extracted is going to be great.
Yeah. And this same structure is intended to be applied to other tables going forward.
Yeah.
Right now it's only holds. Members has a diff view that is similar but not exactly the same already.
Yeah.
But I think will change, and that let me share again. So here, just a modification in the members log. We get a very similar little diff here. Category code was this and is now this, but it's stored slightly differently. But really, the JSON extract concept is the same. You're still just following that path. Anyway, it's fun skills for us all to learn in our reporting. I should click at the log viewer and see what that looks like, because I just haven't looked at it that way. Oh, not much. The log viewer is not exciting. So yeah, this is really only, the log viewer hasn't changed. There's the modification, but it doesn't show me the diff here. So really only accessible via SQL. Oh, and as I was poking at this, I saw that MySQL has some fancy syntax for JSON extract and JSON unquote that Koha doesn't know how to do. So as you're looking at documentation for this, make sure you're looking at MariaDB, not MySQL, because they're slightly different.
I've been expecting over time, since we switched to Maria, that that over time there would be more and more divergence. So that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and this is just like MySQL gives you a fancy other syntax to extract and unquote in one thing with fewer keystrokes. And if I was going to be doing it all the time, I would really care. But I guess I could just type a little more. Has anyone else been well, Christopher said a thing. It would be nice if Koha mentioned Maria in more places so it was more obvious. Yeah, agreed. I mean, I don't even know where in the manual or whatnot it specifies that we're not strict SQL, that we're MySQL rather than SQL. It's probably somewhere. Does it say that in the About Koha page somewhere?
I'm not sure, but I think it is possible to still use Koha with MySQL.
Yeah.
It's just that the community wanted to leave it behind when MySQL started becoming less open. there were some changes in how MySQL was structured as an entity.
Well, and in theory, Koha's database agnostic, so you could run it with other things, but then nobody does. Chip asked about the check Maria logs messages. Yeah, those are the ones you get like when your SQL doesn't work. It's a really good question where those logs go.
I think there's a system preference that tells Koha where to put them. And it's somewhere in the back end that most of us don't have access to.
You mean like if I get this message? Yeah, good question.
Yeah, that's the one. I usually just try something else.
Yeah, I've never really, thought about there is a log part of that message. It might go somewhere on your server.
Mm-hmm. I was just curious.
Well, I can't say.
I could open a ticket with Bywater and ask. But I guess you probably can't view those logs unless you have command line access.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay.
This seems fruitless as I'm doing it. Hmm. Yeah, I know like the plaque logs are on your server in a place you can only see with command line access and would be handy. Koha-US, who is Kristi, points out that yes, the About Koha page does tell you what kind of database you're running. Oh yeah, there you go. But that really does not change Christopher's point of that information could be somewhere helpful or, accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Probably an easy string to put elsewhere in Koha. If we could think of a place we would like to see it.
If there's anything useful there that
Yeah.
I'd actually understand. So yeah, oh well. Well, thanks.
Yeah. When I've fiddled around with MySQL via the command line, it never gives very good error messages. If there is some more verbose and helpful SQL error log, I've never seen it. But we could hope.
And the problem is usually I typed a period instead of a comma.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That would be a really, really good log. The one that says you missed a parentheses, Dumbo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's okay.
For me, it's always I used a comma instead of a period. So
I just wish it would say you screwed up on line 5. And this is what you did.
Well, yeah. I've struggled many times to explain to people what it means that the error message generates at the point where the query realizes something has gone wrong. And when that means like you didn't close a parenthesis, that can be so far from where that parenthesis was supposed to go that it's confusing. Anyway.
that's why it's easiest just not to make any mistakes.
Yeah. Well, that is why I'm still mad about the bug with the update and run SQL button. I'll complain about that every time I'm able.
It's the only reason I do videos with George, because he's perfect.
Is anybody else writing cool reports? Or aspiring to reports? Have you encountered a strangely unanswerable Koha question lately?
I was running a report this morning, where I'm trying to figure out like how many of our serials we have added subscription information to. So it was like joining the biblio table to the biblio items table to the subscription table, which there is one, I found out today. And figuring out like if it doesn't have any subscription IDs, then we assume there aren't any subscriptions attached to it. So that was kind of interesting to do, hopefully helpful in the long run.
Makes sense. Yeah, the subscriptions do make sort of an interesting parallel data structure. Like you've got your subscription and all of your issues that are kind of like parallel to your bib and all of your items.
Yeah,
If you're making items for your periodicals.
which we are.
Did you feel like you got that where you wanted it to be?
I think so. Really, I just wanted to know like how many of these titles, so I was like limiting it by like item type.
Sure.
So it was like, how many of these have we added subscriptions for? And then if they don't have a subscription, we still need to do that work. And I think it's good to go. I don't know, like, so I'm thinking just the regular left joins on those is fine. But I don't know if anyone else does a lot more joining. And
I so rarely do anything other than a left join.
right, that's what I keep hearing.
Yeah, does anybody want to like make a case for fancy joins? I would love to know the fancy join applications.
Right.
It's-
I'd be
But,
easier, right? Start off with the serials, and if it's in there, you've got a subscription. If it isn't, you don't. So
Yeah. Okay.
A long time ago, I did a full outer join where it's
Okay.
giving you, it's like a Venn diagram and you're excluding everything where they meet in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember how to do that, but I did it once because I needed to do it for something. Because everything that I was getting was supposed to have a connection in the middle. And I wanted all the things that didn't have that connection in the middle.
yeah, every
was-
once in a while, I go looking for those Venn diagrams of how all the different joins work. And they're always helpful.
I did it once for a thing that I needed to do, or whatever George just said is like my entire philosophy. And
We
why I
should
can't
make
remember why I did things that I did.
some sort of sticker. I've used an outer join that you get when you do it successfully.
I'm so sorry.
There,
There
I
we
put a
go.
link to some Venn diagrams in the chat.
The fact that they come from codinghorror.com makes me a little trepidatious. I'm poking around in my brain to see if I remember anything exciting about subscription data. I think it's a little more straightforward than like, oh no, sorry, I got distracted by Jason's face. Something terrible happens.
Don't look at my face. I don't know. No, I was trying to look through my reports to see if I did anything exciting recently, and one of them is a leader checker. Maybe that's why my face did that.
Yeah, that seems right. That could be the face of I am confronting Mark via SQL. Well, we are about to close up 2405. Does anybody have like a thing they're super thrilled got into this release? Or things you're curious about how they're going to impact systems administration?
I haven't even looked at what's coming down the pike.
I haven't, this isn't something that's going to directly affect anybody that's already using Koha. But beginning in 2405, all of the notice templates, all of the notice and slips templates that are in when you do a default install of Koha, 100% of them will be in template toolkit. And that's the first big step towards eliminating the hungry alligator syntax. Is first get the defaults to all be in template toolkit, and then they're going to start working on transitioning away from making the hungry alligators obsolete. So that's something everybody should probably be aware of, is probably in the next 2 or 3 years, you're going to have to update any notices to be compliant with template toolkits. So I'm actually looking forward to that.
Yeah, it'll be a change, but it should be a helpful one. Once we get over the growing pains of it all. And I've seen some movement on the bug to create better template toolkit documentation. I feel selfish as I say that out loud. Very good, happily sitting back and watching other people do that. Ooh, yes, Kristi, I also quite like that bug. Kristi shared 22740 automatically changed lost status when an item is paid for. So if you want to have a lost status for lost, and then a status for lost and paid for that you change things to once the patron has paid the lost fee off or it's been written off. This is something that Koha has like kind of implied with its default lost settings, but hasn't really been able to do. So it's cool that it's finally learning. Koha-US's development got in. The development to allow batch checkout via the Koha web-based self-check. So that's exciting. Congratulations to all of us for making that happen. Yay. I haven't figured out yet if that's going to let us stop paying for the third-party software that our RFID self-check station uses. Our pads are so weird. They might not be able to just like roll with it. We'll see.
Sort of interested in this bug. We talked about it last year at conference about the super bigs and how many items that can be displayed on a record at once. I'm interested to see what that change is gonna look like in my production system on those records with lots of items.
I still need to like waylay someone and get them to explain how to do API stuff to me. I like have the barest understanding of how to use jQuery to interact with APIs in Koha pages.
I have a few little chunks, like I add this series to my search results with the API.
Sure.
I need to go back through all my code and like use APIs where I'm not, because it's way better than using reports to pull data out of the database. It's faster and stuff.
The hard thing with API, well, okay, what I've run into in a couple places is there's been a few different places to go for it, and then some of them are no longer available. So it's like Lucas has to keep pointing me to the most current iteration of documentation for it, which has gotten better. But the thing that I keep running into is where I'm going to use API, I can't always use API, especially on the public side. I have to rely on reports in some instances because of security for that. And I think API relies, correct me if I'm wrong, I think API relies that you're on the staff side because it is a logged in resource.
I
So
think some parts of it you don't need to be logged in, and some parts you do.
In anything, almost anything related to patron records, you have to either be logged in or you have to have an app enabled with an access token.
So
like,
and I don't know anything about the access tokens myself, so it's like there's still some things that could be explained better about it.
so backing way up in case anyone in the audience is like really confused, and please correct me if I misexplain this. So an API is a web-based protocol for asking Koha for data or telling Koha to do something, so that as you're building a web page or an online tool or something, yeah, you have a way to get data and push data to and from Koha. And then you can use that within Koha pages to like add data to a page that it wouldn't otherwise be displayable there, or even like build a button that does a thing.
Yeah. I linked the API documentation in the chat. If you in the upper left, there's a search box and you can type in public. Any of the things that you can do without being logged in are marked with public in parentheses. So those are things that you wouldn't have to pass a key to, but you can generate a key for any patron and it's tied to their permissions. So like if they have permissions on their account to edit patrons, then you can pass that key to your API call, kind of log in through that patron and do the things that you want to do, which can get dangerous.
And I have a couple of issues there. Recently, one of our libraries decided to use Communico. And so they need the access token. There's an access token and a client secret. It's like a username and a password. And they're like, 45 characters long and very complex, very hard to decrypt. But some of the Koha permissions, like this Communico app, needs one really basic patron permission, but the only way they can get that one basic patron permission is to give them read and write access to patrons. There's not enough granularity in the permissions to say that this app only has this permission that they need. In order for them to have that permission, they have to have permission to all patron functions, and that worries me. I'm pretty confident that this company is, reputable and all that, but it would be nice if there was a way just to give them the permissions that are valid for the things that this app is supposed to do.
Is there a bug open for that?
I believe there is.
API has come a long way in the past few years, but yeah, there's still, we could use a little bit more straightforward. I mean, even when I go to the pages for API, it's still slightly cryptic in the syntax on how to form the requests sometimes. I mean, it says a lot, and just for somebody that knows enough about jQuery, it can be a little cryptic.
I figured out how to like make API calls with VS Code, and then I lost that file and I don't know how to do it anymore. But next time I figure it out, I will definitely share that. I don't know what the practical use of doing that is, but it was neat because I was able to like make the call, authenticate through a patron, and like get data back. So
Make the call through what?
like an authenticated call via a patron's API token that I generated.
Ah.
I think Jason has the most experience with API, so I think he's the one that should lead the API workshop at the next conference.
You won't learn much because I don't know that much.
I don't think that'd be a bad workshop for the conference, though. Yeah, and maybe,
Yeah, especially if there's more knowledgeable people in the room, like Lucas.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that would be
that'd
awesome. I think it would be awesome to have those of us that know API a little bit better to share what they've done and kind of an API crash course.
I'm just thinking, you know, you and I did the video on how I build my library contact list with the API. So, you know, there's some knowledge there, and I know Jason has used it to add the series information in your OPAC, and it seems like you've used it in a couple of, like don't you have the, isn't that
Oh,
what calls the
yeah.
DVD icon?
Yeah, like
So there's,
splittering through the mark data to make things show up based on the mark data. I've done that, and that was several years ago, so I would have to remind myself.
but yeah,
yeah,
I think if there's probably like 2 or 3 of us that could show people some basic stuff. And then if Lucas comes, then we can all learn something.
On a completely different tangent, at last year's conference, Jason and Barbara showed off the kids catalog, and I sat on that for a while, but I jumped on that this last month or two, and actually I've been sharing some code with Jason. I've been streamlining some of the jQuery that he uses in his iteration to simplify the custom icons or buttons, and also to simplify the filters. So that's been fun to work on.
Oh, I never answered your question. Coconut trees, chick chicka boom boom. That's why they're there for stories and rhyme.
Okay.
Barbara put a 2405 feature in chat that actually is even like reports relevant. It's so like on topic for this SIG.
I'm looking forward to that one. And as I was thinking about it, then I started thinking about all the different times that, well, first, you know, like I wish I could choose 2 or 3 things. So that's great. But then I started thinking about all the times where I have all these different reports for, you know, find any location that's null, find any collection code that's null, find any item type that's null or whatever. And I just started to wonder, could there be a bug that added that kind of functionality? So like this one says, you know, choose one thing or choose multiple things, but could it also incorporate choose something that, you know, give me back stuff that doesn't exist, so you don't have to have a null report for all these different things? And I have no clue.
I don't think that the thing you described wholly cohered into meaning in my brain, but that that sounds like a me problem.
Can you unpack that a little bit more, Barbara?
Yeah. Here,
Well,
here.
I was just thinking, so I'm running a report and now this bug will allow me to choose, you know, like 2 different locations or something. But then I started thinking, well, I often will have to be looking for data, you know, records where it's missing the information. So we didn't get the location in that particular record or whatever. So instead of having to go and do some separate report to find that, I just wondered if, like, this is selecting multiple things, you know, would there be some way to incorporate into that as, you know, select the things that don't have a value.
So what you want is not in.
Yeah, I guess.
That's what you want, and that's the way to write it in SQL, is to say not in.
Although not in won't find nulls. That's a
That's
SQL
true.
rake I step on all the time. As soon as you've said equals or not in, as soon as you've looked for a value, it excludes all of the nulls because they can't be equal to that or not equal to that, Because
Yeah,
they're
you
nothing.
have to do not in or null.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have all kinds of reports that find those things. I just started thinking this kind of bug starts to make things more efficient.
Yeah.
You know, would there be a way to incorporate the lack of data somehow?
That is perfect with me.
Probably.
I'm just happy that I didn't.
It almost needs an option of, you know, you can select multiple things, or and then have another option that says, or this value is null.
Yeah. Okay, I unshared so we could listen to Barbara. Really, that was for me, so I could listen to Barbara. But so this new runtime parameter thing, we know we can make a report that says, give me all the patrons who are in this category. Hooray, that's fun. We like it. But we can also now do fancier stuff and say, I would like to make multiple selections. Now that did tell me on that screen that I need to change my equals to an in. And then it adds an in on there. So that now I can say, give me the board and juvenile and kid. And it's control click to select multiple things. That gave me my mix of patrons.
You need 4 5s for that?
I mean, I don't really care. I need at least 2 5s.
2 5s, okay.
And then this is not new, but the all option. And so, yeah, I could see adding in a null here. So I could pick patron category null and then get only the nulls. That makes sense to me.
Now, if they could just figure out the piece so that you could select, so you can have all or multiple.
Yeah, and I think the way those queries are being parsed right now, that'd be hard, but seems doable. Yeah, and it logically, there's not any great reason why they can't mix and match. And I've been doing these with this little picker thing because I like that the little picker thing makes it really obvious, and added in this helpful text here. But you can just freehand these. You don't need to use the modal.
Tomorrow.
But yeah, that's a nice development.
I need to order something for my mom. Yeah. See, this is why I was thinking about it earlier. Though.
5. You need 2 5s.
I just need one. I just need $5.
Well, y'all, the end of our time approaches. Search your heart for last minute koha issues. I don't know if making it sound more dramatic is incentivizing or disincentivizing.
There's only a couple minutes. Why bother?
Should we have a sing along? We've got time for a round.
Anytime I've been at a story time and somebody says, you know, or I've seen a couple of people fill in for story time, so we should all sing a song. Does anybody know a song? The only song I can think of is In Heaven There Is No Beer.
It could be worse.
It's an old polka song.
Well then, y'all, let's go for it. We'll all go out and try to think of the least appropriate storytime song we can. That'll be our homework for next month. We'll all report back. But maybe not. Hopefully we forget.
I'll remember.
You will too. Yeah,
I already have mine picked out.
I shouldn't say things like this.
It's the rodeo
Okay.
song.
Well, thanks, y'all. It's been swell.
Thank you.
See
Bye.
you again. Goodbye.
Good job.
Bye, everyone.